meanwhile, as I promised, the next hour session that's right here is going to be very, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. This one is topicked as BharatPay building the new Bharat. Of course, a radical one. Let's go ahead and quickly welcome in none other than Mr. Suhail Samir, Chief Executive Officer, BharatPay, who's here with us. Let's make some noise, come on, ladies and gentlemen, and feel welcomed. Welcome in.
It's actually always weird coming into these forums, right? Especially, I always have this misfortune of speaking after someone like Mr. Panda, where no matter what you say after that, it will sort of pale in comparison with what you've heard. It's too much background noise. I'm trying to keep this brief. So let me sort of articulate what we are doing and why we are doing, right? So BharatPay is a short story. It's a 4-year story. Some of you would have heard of us. And we are sort of the poster child of a lot of which Mr. Panda spoke about. I think when we launched BharatPay, UPI in the country was already big. I think many of us were using UPI for everyday transfers. I think the realization we had was UPI was still heavily a urban-centric young consumer phenomena, right? So a lot of us were using UPI to transfer money to each other. But the real India, right? Tier 3, Tier 4 India, rural India, shopkeepers, small businesses, they weren't really using UPI, right? And we started one problem at a time. We said, let's think about small shopkeepers and why sort of they are not using UPI. I think for us, it was a I don't know, tough to digest realization, right? It was, if I am transferring money to a friend of mine, many of them in the audience, it was actually free for both of us. But if I was using the same payment method, same bank-to-bank transfer through UPI to transfer money to a small shopkeeper, the shopkeeper used to be charged anything from 0.5% to 1.5% depending on the size of the transaction. I think that's what we wanted to sort of solve for, and we said if we can make this free, UPI penetration in the merchant network will sort of increase drastically, and that was sort of what we set out to build. I think fast forward to today, like we take a lot of pride in sort of building for the merchants. We have many tenets of our business today apart from this, but sort of this still remains a large part of our thinking. Let me just see if I can make this work. So we talk a lot, we talk a lot of SMEs in India. Everyone you meet these days will tell you SME is sort of the backbone. SME is what will drive India to a $5 trillion economy. And then you look at those 75 million sort of SMEs in the country, and you look at the $380 billion credit gap which exists, right? I'm very desi. I would have put this in Indian rupees, but I don't even know how many zeros does $380 billion have, right? So I sort of stuck to a $380 billion number. And this is sort of the gap we are talking, which is people wanting credit, asking for credit and not getting credit. This does not even include stuff like people taking money from corner money lenders and paying an exorbitant rate of interest, even after keeping their home papers potentially as sort of a collateral. Sorry. All buttons go forward. I think you've seen all the presentations, so so I can go actually now. No, but and that was sort of, I think, the first thing which we wanted to cater to. I think the second thing, you look at the right-hand side of this. All of you know India's population, so I don't have to talk about it. But for this population, there are 7.5 crore cards in India, and even these 7.5 crore cards have privileged people like me who have like 11 cards, right? So if you look at actually the number of people who have cards, this is best guess 4.5 crore people in India have cards, right? And as compared to like 4 crore people in India have cards, so 1 in 33 people in India have a card. Compare it to on an average a US market, not even the most card extensive market, that would be probably Canada. But compared it to US where every person on an average has 1.3 cards, right? So I think the big realization was, and this is again very, very metro tier 1 centric, right? So if you ask any of your friends who works for Amex, I had heard this like 2 years back and it was very startling to hear that if you live in Gujarat, anywhere outside of Ahmedabad, Amex will not even give you a card, right? So, and that's sort of the level of penetration really the card product in India has seen. It's still a top 50 city phenomena. Maybe some of the banks today are sort of pushing the envelope and taking it to 200 cities, right? But India is not 200 cities. 25% of India lives in 200 cities. India is sort of a lot deeper, right? So that's what we set out to build. I will not talk a lot about UPI. We've already spoken a lot about it. I will tell you what BharatPay sort of is doing in this. So as I said, we started with UPI acceptance. I think somewhere down the line we realized the POS system is also, or the credit card, debit card acceptance in India is also as broken. And we launched sort of the POS business. Today, between sort of QR and POS, we process around $20 billion annually on payments. And this is sort of by and large free of cost for the merchants, right? UPI is absolutely free. We take a lot of pride in saying we were the first company which made it free for merchants. But today it's sort of free, right? And huge credit to NPCI, RBI, and all other people who are involved to actually making it free. And that's what sort of has led to a big drive in UPI adoption at the merchant end. On back of that, I think the core business, a lot of people ask me, free to theek hai, paisa kahan banega? I think the core business sort of always has been, can we use this and marry this to the $380 billion credit gap and facilitate lending for these merchants, right? So I think SMEs in India is a very tricky category. Most of them are used to handling big amounts of cash. And I don't blame them, right? So why would they pay 2% interchange to someone? Like a lot of shopkeepers who tell us कि आप मुझे कह रहे हो, I will give you your money into your bank account 2 days later and I'll charge you 2% for it, right? So what's wrong with cash, right? I have heard this statement so many times that it's sort of ingrained in my head, right? So we said if therefore we make digital transactions free for them, that will sort of make it comparable to them, and that's sort of what digital transactions will get sort of driven by. And on the back of that, can we sort of enable lending for them, right? So today, on an average month, we facilitate around 1,500 crores of loans across sort of the merchant and the consumer network we have. And this is not something which we've taken years to build. I think we started sort of loan facilitation only 18 odd months back, right? So, and that's sort of the power. And if you look at where these loans are, I think we sort of operate in, I think 65,000 pin codes. I don't even know how many pin codes now. I think one page which I should have shown you, which is etched in my memory, and one of my colleagues sitting here had made it, which is when we launched the consumer credit program, and we saw the transactions at the end of week 1. It was sort of put on an India map, and I could literally see no spot in that map which was vacant, right? So there were transactions as deep as sort of interiors of Northeast. There were transactions in the hinterland of India, and this is sort of a week 1 outcome, right? So that's what sort of a tech product, and that's where sort of tech in finance comes in, right? So I'm not a big sort of believer in this word FinTech. Glorified hai. Eventually, we are a financial services business, which is sort of using tech to make real enablement happen. So this is sort of the Merchant side, I think the only interesting part on the merchant side is um, we also enable investment for our merchants, right? So that's a big part of the value proposition. Um, this can be investments into something as simple as FD in a bank account. It can be investments into more complicated but still very low risk peer-to-peer lending products. And that's a game changer for many of them, right? So they are not financially that prudent to understand what to do with their money. They don't have money to lock in for long term, right? So um, they don't know when their business will require money. So something like that, where they can get a semblance of a market return without having to necessarily take equity risks, is sort of a big part of the value proposition, right? So um, still, I believe actually merchants come to BharatPay only for two things. One, if they are cash rich merchants, they come to BharatPay because I can help them invest their money better. If they're cash starved merchant, they come to BharatPay because they know we can facilitate lending for them and help them grow their business, right? So, like when we started BharatPay, our thinking was कि दुकानदार तुम आपको सिर्फ दो चीज़ के लिए पैसा देगा, right? So one, he will give you money if you give him credit, and that allows him to grow his business, and that therefore covers for your interest very, very quickly, and he is happy to sort of pay you for that. The second part which he will pay you for is if you help him get customers into his store, right? So think of this guy, small shopkeeper, and struggling with the likes of large e-commerce players, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, whoever you name it, or even a modern trade store like a Reliance chain or a Future Group chain. If you can enable customer to walk into his store, that will sort of drive value, right? So uh, we spent a lot of time so far on the first part. I think increasingly what we are doing as a company now is sort of building the second leg, right? So, and as part of that, we acquired this company called Payback from Amex. Payback is sort of one of India's largest, if not the largest, loyalty programs. But unfortunately, loyalty in India is also very tier one, large chain, large points issuer like a ICICI bank giving points, getting consumed in a large sink like a HPCL petrol pump or a Future Group store, right? So I think what we really want to do is now take this loyalty to the small shopkeeper. Can we marry our merchant network, sort of 80, 80 lakh merchants which we have on our platform? Can we marry that with the 110 million, 11 crore consumers we have on the Payback platform and really enable customer acquisition for this merchant, right? So that's the next leg of sort of what we are trying to build. But I think the biggest satisfaction which sort of our business gives me is actually not the value of the transactions, is not the amount of credit we facilitate, and not the valuation of the business, which a lot of people focus on. But the fact that how deep we can go into India and how quickly we can enable that on the back of tech, right? So I will not talk a lot about the consumer side. I think it's a very simple, we are trying to enable consumer credit and democratize consumer credit, right? So a lot of the problem with a credit card type ecosystem becomes that the cost of customer acquisition and the real cost of customer acquisition, the guy who is using a credit card, becomes so high, right? Because it's like a credit card is 200 rupees, including logistics 400. You send it to a user, half of them don't even open the packet, it becomes 800. Half of them never use it, it becomes 1600. And then you basically, as a credit card company, think, if I'm not going to give this guy a 50,000 limit minimum, it doesn't even cover my cost of capital or cost of customer acquisition, right? And then you don't give a card. And that's the real reason cards don't go to tier 3, tier 4, because people's ability, financial strength is not strong enough for you to give them large credit in the beginning, right? So that's what Postpay solves. It's a digital first or predominantly digital product, and therefore I don't care where the consumer is, right? So he may be in a real small rural village, I can enable credit for him, whether his limit is 2,000 bucks or whether his limit is 5 lakh rupees. Doesn't really matter to me, right? So, and we've had sort of great success on this product so far. I think we launched the product sometime in October last year, and today we facilitate around 700 crores of credit on it every month, right? So, and that's sort of the real power of tech. I can't sort of imagine a physical business being able to scale at this pace. I've already spoken a lot about this. I think this is what really is core to BharatPay, what makes us stick. Sort of zero MDR, which was sort of a game changer and now has become table stake. POS machines, again, like sort of maybe one example, I seem to have 5 minutes. One example which I will talk about is, it was very weird, right? When we saw the POS machines, I don't know how many of you sort of ever sold or used POS machines. It's a very archaic monthly rental concept, right? So, because a lot of us believe a shopkeeper can't afford a machine, right? So, it used to be a great concept way back in like 1980s when a mobile phone used to not exist. It was still a good concept in early 2000s where a mobile phone used to cost 50,000 rupees and very few people could sort of afford it, and POS was sort of even more expensive. Somewhere in 2010, I think the world flipped, right? So a phone was 5,000 rupees and a POS machine was still 1 lakh rupees, right? So that's where this rental concept comes from. दुकानदार के पास phone है, but वो POS machine afford नहीं कर सकता, it's very expensive. I think fast forward to 2020, the world has flipped again, right? Now a phone is 1 lakh rupees. A shopkeeper carries a 30,000 phone. POS machine is 7,000 rupees. The most expensive POS machine is 7,000 rupees, right? So what is the point of charging him 1,000 rupees per month rental? I just don't get it, right? So, and that was sort of the realization, right? It was like, you tell a guy, you pay me 5,000 rupees, the POS machine is yours. No rental. Let's be done away with this, right? And that actually was a unique selling point because they couldn't get it because they thought it was a very expensive thing. I think that to us actually led us to, like, we are probably today the second largest private POS player in the country. It's not even been 2 years when we launched this product. But more importantly, I think for me, once the guy pays 5,000 rupees, he actually will use it. Like, this is very well understood. You give people tons of stuff free, they don't see the value of it. Once he's actually invested his 5,000 rupees into it, he will use it every day, right? So, and therefore, when we look at our active machine rates, we operate at roughly 2x of the industry, right? And it is no rocket science. We are not doing anything different. It's just the guy has actually invested into the machine, right? So that's sort of what is unique. This is sort of the journey of BharatPay. I will, many of you would already know of this, so I will not bore you with this. And I think my last thought, sort of, world has changed a lot. It will keep evolving. I think we are still the biggest sort of proponents of UPI. So I will sort of, I think when a lot of people ask me, what do you think will happen in the next 3-4 years? I think there are only two themes in my mind, right? So one is sort of UPI doing what it did to the debit market on the credit side. And no matter what we believe, credit on UPI is going to destroy the credit card industry in the country. Whether we believe it today, whether it will happen 10 years down the line, whether it will happen 20 years down the line, we will see. But sort of that's sort of one belief we strongly believe in. And the second belief we sort of strongly believe in is payments are increasingly going to be a zero-sum game. It's weird coming from a payments company, but I believe sort of, and BharatPay believes that no one can make money in payments, right? So, and therefore, what we've seen, what happened on debit is already happening on credit, right? If you've noticed, a shopkeeper used to be charged 5% on Amex in 2015, maybe 2012. Today it's 2%. A normal credit card used to be 2.5%. Today it's sort of 1.25, 1.3. This is happening, right? Interchanges will keep on coming down. Maybe the online businesses will get impacted last because you can still argue in an online business, payment happens first, transaction happens later. Whereas in a physical world, I think payments will increasingly become closer to zero revenue, max cover your cost businesses. And therefore, sort of I think I really want to see a day where sort of MDRs on credit cards are actually zero, right? So, and that's how at least we have designed our business. We don't depend on sort of making interchange money. But this is at least debit and credit, which we understand. But I believe increasingly cross-border payments, increasingly sort of forex transactions, with sort of the use of blockchain. I don't want to use the word crypto at all, but the real use case of blockchain and crypto is that, right? It makes financial transactions incredibly easy, right? And therefore, I don't sort of think the day is very, very far. Hopefully, all of us see in our lifetime where sort of payments are actually free and businesses will have to sort of reinvent and figure out where to make money from. No, thank you very much. I'm here. I have a meeting at 11, but if any one of you want to sort of catch me, I'm spending a bit of time post that meeting here, and please grab me whenever you can. Thank you very much.
Baldeep, if I could request you to join us to present a small token to Suhail, thanking him for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
We haven't got a picture yet, so. आप खुल के ताली बजा सकते हो, you know what? Yeah, feel free. Thank you. You know, with BharatPay, I guess the only thing is if you have a belief, just go for it.